Google's quantum AI team just released a 57-page white paper, and buried inside that paper is something that should stop every crypto investor in their tracks. The XRP Ledger is mentioned 14 times, not in the footnotes, not as a passing reference, front and center, in sections on real-world asset tokenization, protocol-level innovations, and post-quantum migration roadmaps. While Bitcoin and Ethereum get flagged for vulnerabilities, the XRP Ledger gets flagged as one of the networks already experimenting with post-quantum cryptographic solutions, already deploying NIST standardized crystal dilithium signatures on its testnet, already addressing the problem that most of the crypto market hasn't even started thinking about. Google didn't just issue a warning about quantum computing, they published a taxonomy of which networks are prepared and which ones aren't. And the XRP Ledger is in the prepared category. This is not financial advice. I am sharing publicly available information for educational purposes. Always do your own research. Before we get into it, drop Quantum Ready in the comments if you already knew the XRP Ledger was working on post-quantum cryptography. Drop 14 times if the fact that Google mentioned it 14 times in a single white paper just changed how you think about the ledger's positioning. Because what I'm about to walk you through connects Google's research directly to XRP's institutional thesis in a way that no one else is covering. Welcome back. I am the Calm Analyst. Around here, we follow the technical foundations that determine which networks survive long-term. Today, we're breaking down Google's quantum white paper, what it says about Bitcoin and Ethereum's vulnerabilities, why the XRP Ledger is positioned differently, and how quantum readiness connects to institutional adoption, tokenization, and the price trajectory for XRP. Let's get into it. Let me start with what Google actually found, because the specifics matter and most coverage has been surface level. The core finding is that quantum computers might need far fewer resources than previously thought to crack 256-bit elliptic curve cryptography, down to under 500,000 physical qubits. That shaves years off earlier timelines and puts a realistic target around 2029 for when cryptographically relevant quantum machines could emerge. That's 3 years from now, not decades, 3 years. For Bitcoin, this means 6.7 million BTC in exposed public key scripts could become vulnerable to harvest now, decrypt later attacks. 1.7 million Bitcoin sits in P2PK scripts from the Satoshi era with public keys permanently exposed on-chain, and live transactions in the mempool could be at risk within Bitcoin's 10-minute block window. A quantum computer that can derive a private key from a public key in under 10 minutes can steal funds before the transaction even confirms. Ethereum and Solana get called out for their heavy reliance on similar elliptic curve signatures across smart contracts and DeFi layers. The top 1,000 Ethereum wallets could potentially be compromised in under 9 days. But the XRP Ledger is framed differently. Google's paper groups it with Algorand and Solana as leaders in early post-quantum cryptography deployments. But it goes further by highlighting the XRP Ledger's protocol-level support for real-world asset tokenization. The built-in features that make it suitable for institutional use, issuer permissions, compliance controls, asset metadata, are specifically noted. If Google's differentiation between vulnerable networks and prepared networks just hit you, smash that like button, because this distinction is about to become the most important evaluation criterion for every institution choosing which blockchain to build on. Now let me explain why the XRP Ledger's positioning is structurally different from Bitcoin and Ethereum's quantum challenge. Because the upgrade path matters as much as the current state. Bitcoin's fundamental problem is coordination. Any protocol-level change to Bitcoin's cryptography requires near unanimous consensus from a decentralized network of miners, node operators, and developers. The block size debate took years and split the network. Changing the fundamental signature algorithm that secures every Bitcoin in existence would be orders of magnitude more contentious. Google's paper notes the catch-22 directly. Bitcoin needs massive upgrades without the central planning capacity to execute them quickly, and every person who self-custodies Bitcoin would need to migrate their coins to entirely new wallet addresses using the new cryptographic scheme. The Satoshi coins alone present an unsolvable dilemma. If they don't migrate, they become the first target for anyone with a sufficiently powerful quantum computer. The XRP Ledger's architecture solves this differently. Its smart signature capabilities allow for seamless evolution to quantum-safe authentication without disrupting the ledger's continuity. The validator coordination model makes migration smoother than on proof-of-work chains. And experimental post-quantum signatures using NIST standardized crystals dilithium are already deployed on the testnet. Google's paper explicitly names the XRP Ledger in its call to action for post-quantum roadmaps, grouping it with platforms central to tokenized finance. That's not a warning, that's a direct endorsement of its role in the post-quantum world. And the XRP ledger has been post-quantum secure for hashing and encryption since its inception. The additional work happening now is extending that security to the signature layer, which is the component most threatened by quantum advances. The foundation was already quantum resistant. The upgrades being tested now complete the picture. Comment below. After hearing how Bitcoin faces a coordination problem for quantum upgrades, while the XRP ledger has smart signature capabilities that make migration seamless, does that change how you think about the long-term risk profile of each network? Type XRP Edge if yes. Type still Bitcoin if you think Bitcoin solves the problem regardless. Now let me connect this to the institutional thesis, because quantum readiness is not just a technical checkbox. It's becoming a prerequisite for institutional infrastructure decisions. When the DTCC evaluates which blockchain to build tokenization infrastructure on, quantum vulnerability is a multi-decade risk factor. When BlackRock custodies billions in tokenized assets, the cryptographic foundation of the underlying network is a fiduciary concern. When pension funds with 20 to 30-year investment horizons allocate to crypto through ETFs, the security of the network backing those ETFs matters beyond the current market cycle. Google's paper puts a 2029 timeline on when quantum computers could become cryptographically relevant. Any institution making infrastructure decisions today is already inside that planning horizon. The networks that can demonstrate post-quantum readiness have a structural advantage in attracting institutional capital. The networks that can't face questions from compliance departments, risk committees, and boards that read Google's research. The XRP ledger is mentioned 14 times in the paper, in sections on real-world asset tokenization, in protocol-level innovation discussions, in migration roadmap analysis. Google is effectively telling the institutional world, this is one of the networks that's doing the work, and this connects directly to the tokenization growth we've been tracking. The XRP ledger already holds billions in notional value in tokenized real-world assets. U.S. Treasuries, bank deposits, stablecoins, and energy assets from entities like YPF. That tokenized value needs to be secure not just today, but for the lifetime of those assets. A 30-year Treasury bond tokenized today needs to be on a network that's still secure in 2056. Quantum readiness is not optional for that use case. It's mandatory. Subscribe right now, hit the bell, drop a click, because the quantum conversation is about to reshape how institutions evaluate blockchain networks. And the XRP ledger's 14 mentions in Google's white paper are the kind of signal that moves capital allocation decisions at the institutional level. Now let me address what this means for the competitive landscape, because this is where the analysis gets sharp. Bitcoin maximalists have been dismissing quantum concerns for years, insisting that the decentralized community will coordinate upgrades when needed. Google's paper shows exactly why that confidence may be misplaced. The 2029 timeline compresses the window for action. The coordination challenge on a proof-of-work chain without central planning is enormous, and the migration of billions of dollars in existing UTXOs to new cryptographic addresses is a logistical nightmare that no one has a concrete plan for. Ethereum faces similar challenges across its smart contract and DeFi layers. Every deployed smart contract with ECDSA dependencies needs to be evaluated and potentially redeployed. The attack surface is vast, and the coordination across thousands of independent DeFi protocols is daunting. The XRP ledger's validator coordination model, smart signature support, and already deployed testnet implementations put it in a fundamentally different position. Not immune to quantum challenges, but already addressing them at the protocol level with a governance structure that can execute upgrades without contentious forks. This competitive advantage compounds over time. Every quarter that passes where the XRP ledger advances its post-quantum roadmap while other networks debate whether the threat is real is a quarter where the institutional preference gap widens. And here's the price implication that most people are missing. When quantum-resistant tokens surged after Google's paper, some gaining 50% in a single day, the market was sending a clear signal. Quantum readiness has value. The market is willing to pay a premium for networks that are prepared. XRP hasn't repriced yet for its quantum positioning because the market is still focused on short-term macro headwinds. Oil, tariffs, the Clarity Act timeline. But the quantum readiness premium is real. It's been priced into quantum-specific tokens already. And when institutional allocators start incorporating Google's 2029 timeline into their network evaluation frameworks, the XRP ledger's 14 mentions become a competitive moat that gets priced in. Let me bring this all together, because quantum readiness is not a standalone thesis. It amplifies everything else we've been tracking. The institutional adoption thesis. Institutions need networks that are secure for the lifetime of the assets they're tokenizing. Google just told them which networks are preparing and which aren't. XRP Ledger is in the preparing category, 14 times. The tokenization thesis. Billions in real-world assets already on the XRP Ledger. Those assets need quantum-secure infrastructure. The Ledger's post-quantum work ensures that tokenized treasuries, bonds, and deposits remain secure even as quantum computing advances. The regulatory thesis. The Clarity Act provides the legal framework, the OCC Charter provides the banking pathway, and quantum readiness provides the technical assurance that the infrastructure built today will still be secure tomorrow. All three reinforce each other. The competitive thesis. Bitcoin and Ethereum face massive coordination challenges for quantum upgrades. The XRP Ledger's architecture makes migration smoother. That differential advantage attracts the institutions that need to make 20-year infrastructure decisions today. The price thesis. Quantum readiness has already been priced into quantum-specific tokens. It has not yet been priced into XRP. When it is, the premium adds to the existing catalysts from the Clarity Act, ETF flows, SWIFT certification, and institutional adoption. Every layer amplifies the others. Quantum readiness isn't separate from the institutional thesis. It's the security foundation that makes the institutional thesis viable long-term. And Google just published the research that puts it on every institutional risk committee's agenda. Price is a distraction. Value is the reality. Structure is what matters. And the deepest layer of structure is security. Google just told the world that the XRP Ledger is building for the post-quantum era, while most of crypto hasn't started. 14 mentions in a 57-page white paper from one of the most authoritative technology companies on Earth. That is not a footnote. That is a foundation. In a market fueled by emotion and noise, we thrive on data and composure. Remember, haste leads to loss, while calm analysis leads to victory. Comment, calm analyst, below. Let me see who stayed for the complete quantum to institutional to price connection. And share this with someone who holds Bitcoin or Ethereum and has never asked their network, are you quantum ready? Because Google just asked that question for them. And the answer matters more than any price chart. Like, subscribe, notifications on. I'll see you in the next one. Stay patient, stay rational, and as we always do, we don't wait for the future, we plan for it. Peace.